Okay, students, we're going to continue looking at proportions. And so we just learned how to tell whether or not two ratios were proportionate to each other. Now we're going to learn how to write and solve a proportion. So a lot of times we're getting information from word problems or from tables, and we are told that we're looking at values that are proportional. So what we're going to do when we're writing a proportion is we're going to set up our ratio, and we're going to have our first ratio is equal to our second ratio. So that means when we're going through the information, we want to be looking at, okay, well, what's our first ratio? And we want to set that up. So we're looking at this table here, and it says we're comparing our total costs that we're spending for purchasing ringtones. So our first ratio is the amount of money that we spent last month. So last month, we purchased 2 ringtones, and our price was $6. Now, when we're setting up a ratio, it is absolutely critical that our units match. So because we put ringtones in the numerator on our first ratio, on our second ratio, the numerator has to also be talking about ringtones. Those units have to match up. And then because we put dollars in the denominator on our first ratio, same thing with our second ratio. The denominator has to be talking about dollars. So when we're reading our table, our second ratio has 3 ringtones, so that has to go in the numerator. And our dollars is an unknown amount. So what we're going to learn how to do is how to actually solve our proportion for the unknown amount. Now, when we're practicing today, we're just going to be practicing setting up the ratio. So make sure you're reading the directions carefully. But as we continue through this chapter, we're then going to learn that when we have an unknown amount, we can then solve our proportion because there's certain things that we know about proportions that are going to allow us to solve them. So let's practice setting up another ratio. So we're looking at this recipe here. So take a minute to kind of look over the recipe and all the different ingredients. And then we're going to read the problem and we're going to actually set up the ratio together, which is just comparing two things. So it says a chef increases the amount of ingredients in a recipe to make a proportional recipe. We do this all the time when we're cooking. The recipe might only feed 4 people, but we might have 6 people in our family. So we need to increase the recipe proportionally so it still tastes good, but so that it'll feed the number of people we need it to feed. So the new recipe calls for 6 cups of black beans. Okay, so when we're setting up our new recipe, we're using 6 cups of black beans, but we can see in our original recipe, we only used 1.5. So we're going to be comparing the original recipe to the new recipe. That's really important to know what we're comparing. So in our original recipe, we used 1.5 cups of black beans. Okay. In our new recipe, again, those units have to match. We're going to use 6 cups of black beans because we must want to feed quite a few more people than originally. Now, then we keep reading and we are trying to figure out how many tomatoes we're going to need. So if we go back to our original recipe used 1 tomato. So we originally used 1 tomato, but we want to know how many tomatoes we're going to need. And so again, we're going to use X to represent the number of tomatoes because we don't know that yet. And we're going to set these equal to each other. So again, all we've done is set up the proportion. We haven't solved it yet. We're going to learn how to actually solve the proportion a little bit later on in this chapter. So today, all we're working on is, can you set up your proportion? Don't forget, it's really, really important to label those units. That's how you can check and make sure that you're setting it up correctly. So go ahead and practice setting up your proportion.